Well, good afternoon, Andrew.
Hi, Ari. Good to hear your voice, and good to see everyone here. I think we can see everyone here. It's Friday afternoon, and we've got to create some liveliness here, don't we?
I think so. I think it's time to create some liveliness.
This is not a talk show, though, so let's get right into it.
So, well, thank you all, first of all, for having us here, and Andrew, thank you for letting me share the stage with you. We get the opportunity and the privilege to see you often in Washington, although I'm not sure you always
not
feel
by
the same.
choice,
Right.
not by choice.
But there is a lot of conversation, obviously, about we're 5 years past the financial crisis. The economy in the United States is moving in the right direction, although, as the president says over and again, there is still more work to be done. I wonder if you have a comment as a CEO of a global company, as the co-chair of the Advanced Manufacturing Partnership that the president named you to yesterday, as a member of the President's Export Council, the chair of the Business Council, if you have some comments about what you're seeing from a macroeconomic perspective, where the opportunities are, where you think we're heading.
And thank you, Ari. It's a great privilege to share the stage with Ari. We work together, he's already indicated, with the president and the Advanced Manufacturing Partnership, and I'm sure we're going to get to that. So the global economy and Dow's presence in it, we're in 160 countries. 2/3 of our revenue and assets are outside the United States. And a little kind of benchmark for you, I was in 42 countries last year, and I'm on track to be in the same number this year. So I'm out there with customers and partners and our employees and interacting real time. And so when you come into policy environments, people like me do have the privilege of real-time information, maybe not necessarily what you're reading in the press, but it's real-time information. And so sometimes, we're called a macro stock company as a result. And I would tell you that this last 5 years, rebuilding global demand to pre-08 has not yet occurred. We don't have a demand driver that's replaced what is in essence was the US housing bubble, that big bubble, and we don't want to replace it in kind, of course. But the world's economies are not functioning synergistically yet to actually create the demand drivers that we need. I mean, trade agreements would be great moves in that direction. We can probably get to that. So as we see the world right now, the absence of the demand that we had pre-08-09 has forced many of us in the corporate world and the global world to bring down cost structures, which is a bad thing for growth because you're not investing. It's also caused a lot of us to keep money on the balance sheet, and that's a pretty big number these days in corporate America, $2 trillion. And that's really waiting for the right policy environments, and we're going to get to that, I'm sure. And so as we see the world right now, we have, for the last 9 months to 12 months, we, Dow, have been saying the US has become the world's bright spot. It has the opportunity, and we're seeing it in our demand, to help lead the world out of this pre-08, get back to the pre-08 growth, and maybe through different demand drivers. Europe is flatlining with glimmers of hope, but hope is not a strategy, as someone famous once said. And so we don't see real traction there yet. China was the real disappointment of last year. The Chinese have reorganized themselves. I track this daily. The Chinese demand numbers are still not what they were. I think the Chinese number is more like a 6-7% GDP. They want 8 or higher, but want is also something, in terms of putting it in place needs policies. Latin America has been shaky because of Brazil and all the things they're going through there. And if you keep going around the world with me here, and I'll stop, relatively speaking, the US has become a bright spot. And it's become a bright spot in a range of different areas, but notably the lower energy costs and have helped companies like mine become investors in this country again. And we can probably talk about that as a separate question.
Well, as we just continue on the conversation about the domestic context, you wrote a book recently about making it in America. You've been a strong proponent and advocate, even an evangelist for manufacturing in the United States and the importance of investing here. And the theme of this conference is investing in our youth. And I wonder if you could take that next step down and talk a little bit about what you see in the manufacturing context and what it means for communities across the country.
The sweet spot that the book struck that coincided with Dow's strategies and my observations as a global citizen. I had 20-odd years working out in Asia, and I'm Australian by birth and Greek by heritage, and lived in the United States and travel, as I said already, extensively. The privilege of leading a company like Dow, and you grow up through the ranks of Dow in 37 years, in my case, to get to this spot, is that you see these intersections forming that become quite complex in a volatile environment, which need policy frameworks where the private sector and the public sector have to work together, as the previous panel was indicating, for the benefit of civil society. And in fact, the intersection of civil society, public sector, private sector for corporations, for many of the leading corporations, and I hope you consider Dow one of those, has become the is of your question. The is from a famous book, Jim Collins wrote, The Is and the Should. So the is and how to deal with that complexity in a policy environment to create jobs, to create, for the next generation, the opportunities that the previous generation had, to get investment stimulated in the right sectors. You can't do that in just services alone. I mean, you can't have an agricultural sector and a services sector and someone's buying your services, because at the end of the day, who's buying your services? Okay, if you think that someone in a manufacturing economy is going to be buying your services just because you have services. So what are the services we all care about besides, maybe fast food and hoteling and entertainment, which are all great services and are all lifestyle based? What are the job creators? The job creators is the manufacturing base, the industrial base, the underpinning of invention, innovation, and technology. And what has happened to all of us is we've had in our psychology this notion that manufacturing is smokestack and pollution, and we should not have manufacturing. And the coincidence of the White House coming to the same realization, Ron Bloom and the manufacturing czar the president appointed, with the book I wrote, was that I put down about 11 chapters worth of the observations that we've seen around the world of countries that get it and countries that don't. Countries that understand that the evolution of manufacturing is revolutionary, that the invention of 3D printing and nanotechnology and modern day semiconductors and computing power in our smartphones all comes by the coincidence of manufacturing capability and prototypes and scale-up capability, mezzanine financing, and the ability to scale in a market of scale such as this one. It comes from university partnerships, working with government partnerships, R&D centers, as well as companies like Dow who can afford the R&D. And what the AMP work is meant to do is define, as we have done in the first version, and now the second version being launched, is to define not one, not two, not three technology platforms, but a dozen or so. Mm-hmm. Because job creation is no longer the domain of big pillar industries like the ones Dow has been in. It's not steel and cement and petrochemicals and these big pillar industries. What's happening to those industries? They've been dumbed down, either through the resource sector or through the labor market, textiles and all the like. We have to go to the inventions, innovations that lead to the next generation of technologies and they aren't as job intensive. So you can't have one or two or three sectors. You've literally got to have dozens of sectors. And then you take advantage of the multiplier effect. Because in a sector, pick your technology platform, it's 1 to 5. Mm-hmm. Now you need the services. Now you need the small companies. Now the value multiplier in the value chain helps the supply chain. And today it is about global supply chains and how to attract them to your country. And how do you actually have a country which competes like a company? How do you put that board of directors in place to make it work?
Right.
AMP version 2 and AMP version 1, in my mind, was the president deciding I need a board of directors, public, private, academia, to put forward a set of strategies that actually cause investment to come to those sectors in my country. And then I'll get job creation for the youth of tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. And we want to spend a little bit of time on public-private partnership. But I would just say that one of the things that the president has been very committed to is this skilling of the workforce, thinking about the next wave of industries, focusing on manufacturing. We put up $1.5 billion into community college training partnerships, where we are working with employers and community colleges and communities across the country. $500 million of that money has gone to manufacturing. So a third of the money has gone into the skilling of workers in the manufacturing sector. And the president, through the Advanced Manufacturing Partnership, has talked about this national network of manufacturing institutes that combine all those different players that you're talking about. So as we're talking with a group of young folks and the theme of a conference that is a summit that is about investing in youth, why manufacturing from an individual perspective? What is the it's great to talk about the supply chain, the multiplier effect, but putting yourself in their shoes and thinking about the future, what's the rationale and the impetus?
Yeah, so look, I'm obviously of the age group I am. I remember when I was a youth seeing the wonderment of humankind going to the moon and literally the rockets in the backyard we all experimented with, and the chemistry sets and the wonderment of science and technology. Today's youth, the wonderment of science and technology is being distracted on a smartphone for a few minutes and checking it every 10 minutes. We need to reinvigorate the connectivity between the youth and in our schools and our workers so that they can actually be passionately embracing this new technology revolution across all the plethora of technologies that we're working on in the Advanced Manufacturing Partnership. And we need to celebrate the notion that a factory worker isn't a dumbed-down high school diploma or even not even a high school graduate. That's yesterday's work. That's assembly line work, and there's a role for that, but in our advanced economy, we've got to take a leaf out of the page that Germany wrote and celebrate apprentices and internships in technical schools and rebuild it. And that's what we did in AMP version 1, which is really to rebuild the talent pipeline at the worker level, to really put in place curricula at the community colleges, and we now do it with our Baton Rouge Community College effort down in Louisiana. It's the largest in the country. The money the president's now directed to this area. Networking these community colleges and celebrating the notion that highly skilled technical workers managing robotics, advanced automation, advanced sensing, really complex technology, process technologies to make the next Boeing jet, to make the next GE jet engine, to make the next Dow Chemical paint formulation to take viruses out of the air. This is exciting stuff for our youth. And we've got to re-advertise and re-energize our youth to make them believe that this is a noble job, that not everyone out there should be a PhD. We need our PhDs. I employ 3,000 of them. But I employ 40,000 workers in the factories, highly skilled workers. And when I go to the control rooms and talk to them about the products they make here, they export to the world, made in America, okay, and putting a Made in America label on the box that goes out, or the tank car that goes out, knowing that they're highly complex workplace, managing it safely with high skills, and that we're retraining them has to be endemic throughout the country. And a little bit of audience participation, okay, just because it's Friday afternoon. Put up a hand in the audience. Sorry, moderator, I do this regularly. Put up a hand or two hands if you are of the age that's had a son, daughter, grandson, granddaughter, who is currently doing or will do something in technology as an engineer or a scientist or a technical worker. Put up your hands very high. I could see maybe a dozen hands. If I asked banking or something like that, it'd be a little more. So you have to fall in love with your desire for an advanced lifestyle and explain it in simplistic terms to your audiences. I'm obviously, you called me an evangelist. I'm way over. I'm way over. I'm definitely evangelical about this. But you've got to get our kids to fall in love again with the value proposition of learning maths and science so they can be highly skilled, so they can work with these technologies of tomorrow. There's 600,000 STEM job openings in America as we speak. There's $100 billion of investment on the books in America in advanced technology manufacturing, stimulated by some of the president's programs. It's going to create 5 million new jobs in the next 5 years. Don't you think that the people in your universe might be interested in that job environment? I think that's how we've got to get the message out and get it out simply.